My name is Daryl Bennett, and I am 36 years old. The smell of turkey and stuffing filled my parents' dining room as our entire family gathered around the table in our home just outside Charlotte, North Carolina. My mother had outdone herself this year. My grandmother, whom everyone called Grandma Rose, was telling her usual stories about the old days while my father carved the turkey with that same quiet precision I had watched since childhood. My older brother Maurice sat with his wife Rochelle, and my younger sister Tanisha was helping serve the side dishes. My nieces and nephews whispered and giggled at the kids' table in the next room. It was supposed to be perfect. I should have seen it coming. My wife, whose name is Camille, had been unusually quiet during the drive over, staring out the window and giving one-word answers when I tried to draw her into conversation. When my mother hugged her at the door and asked how work was going, Camille answered, "Fine," and walked straight past her into the living room. Now, at the table, she barely touched her plate, just pushed food around with her fork while everyone else enjoyed themselves. This stuffing recipe has been in our family for 3 generations, Grandma Rose was explaining to Rochelle, who listened with genuine curiosity. The secret is using day-old bread and adding just a pinch of sage at the end. That was when it happened. Camille suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. The sound cut through every conversation. The entire table went silent. Every single person turned to look at her, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. "I hate your family," she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls. "They're all toxic and controlling. I cannot stand another minute of this fake happiness and these ridiculous traditions." My grandmother dropped her fork. My mother's face went completely pale, her eyes glassy with hurt. Morris's mouth fell open. The little kids at the cousins' table went quiet. Then one of my younger nieces started crying. "I want a divorce right now," Camille continued, pointing at me like I was sitting in a witness stand. "I am done with all of you people." The silence that followed was almost physical. 23 family members just stared at her, in complete shock. My oldest nephew started whimpering, and my Aunt Denise automatically pulled him closer, murmuring something soothing he did not seem to hear. I set down my fork very carefully and looked directly at Camille. "Okay," I said calmly. "Let us start the process immediately." She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. Confusion crept across her face as I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "Wait, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice suddenly uncertain. "Exactly what you asked for," I replied, scrolling through my contacts. I found my attorney's number and hit speakerphone, placing the phone right in the center of the table where everyone could hear. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Franklin Law Group. This is Mr. Franklin." "Good evening, Mr. Franklin. This is your client, Daryl Bennett," I said clearly, making sure every word carried across the silent room. "I need to file for divorce tonight." A brief pause followed. "Oh," he said, surprised. "Are you certain about this? It is Thanksgiving evening." "Completely certain," I replied. "My wife just announced in front of my entire extended family that she hates them all and wants an immediate divorce. I am simply honoring her request." Camille was now staring at me like I had lost my mind. "That is not. I did not mean you were supposed to actually. I can have initial papers ready by Monday morning," Mr. Franklin said through the speaker. "We will need to discuss asset division and living arrangements." "Perfect," I interrupted. "Send them to the house. I will be available all weekend to review everything." The color was draining from Camille's face as the reality hit her. This was not going according to whatever script she had imagined. Actually, I continued into the phone while maintaining eye contact with her, given that she made this announcement publicly in front of 23 family members, including elderly grandparents and small children. I think we have a pretty clear case of irreconcilable differences. "Understood," Mr. Franklin replied. "I will prepare the initial documents tonight and have them ready for your signature Monday." I hung up and slipped the phone back into my pocket. The entire table was still frozen in place, but in my family's eyes I saw something new. Not just shock anymore. Something closer to respect, mixed with sadness. "Well," I said, picking up my fork again as calmly as I could manage. "Who wants seconds on turkey?" Inside, my heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. Looking back now, I should have acted months earlier. The signs were all there, but I kept hoping things would improve. Camille had always been particular about family gatherings, but over the past year, her behavior had become increasingly hostile. It started small, in ways that were easy to excuse. Last Christmas, she complained that my mother's cooking was too heavy and made passive-aggressive comments about traditional gender roles while my mother and sisters served dessert. When Tanisha announced her engagement, Camille rolled her eyes and muttered something about another pointless wedding expense. The real warning sign came during my father's birthday dinner in March. My parents had chosen a small soul food restaurant downtown, a place my father loved because it reminded him of his childhood in Mississippi. The whole family showed up early, laughing about traffic and the parking situation, teasing my father about getting older. Camille spent nearly the entire evening on her phone, scrolling and tapping, while people tried to include her in conversation. When Grandma Rose finally asked her to put it away during the birthday toast, Camille snapped, "I am an adult. I can use my phone whenever I want." The table went quiet then too, but I smoothed it over with a joke and a forced smile. I should not have. The pattern escalated after that. Every family event became a battlefield. She found fault with everything. The food, the conversations, the stories we had heard 100 times but still enjoyed, the traditions we had maintained for decades. She started making excuses not to attend, claiming work emergencies or sudden headaches that miraculously disappeared once we got home. "Your family is suffocating," she would say during car rides back to our house. "They ask too many questions. Your mother treats you like you're still 12 years old." I tried explaining that caring questions were not the same as invasive ones. When someone asks how your job is going, or if you need anything, that is love, not control. I told her more than once. But she saw manipulation everywhere. If my mother sent food home with us, Camille called it guilt tripping. If my father offered advice about our car or finances, she called it meddling. If Grandma Rose told a story about how my parents had met, Camille sighed loudly and checked her phone. The breaking point should have been my nephew Zion's baptism 2 months before Thanksgiving. The church was full of family and friends. After the service, everyone gathered in the fellowship hall where my mother and aunts had set up tables with homemade food. While everyone else celebrated this milestone, Camille sat in the corner flipping through her phone and complaining quietly about meaningless religious ceremonies. When Maurice asked her to be in a family photo, she refused outright. "I'm not part of this circus," she said loudly enough for several people to hear. I pulled her aside afterward, my jaw tight with embarrassment. "These people have welcomed you for 5 years," I said quietly but firmly. "The least you can do is show basic respect." "Respect," she laughed bitterly. "They do not respect me. Your mother still asks when we are having children, as if it is any of her business. Your father gives unsolicited advice about everything. And your grandmother acts like some wise oracle when she is just an elderly woman with outdated opinions." That conversation should have ended differently. I should have told her then that if she could not treat my family with basic courtesy, we had a fundamental problem. Instead, I tried harder to make things work. I started attending events alone, making excuses for her absence. "She is not feeling well," I would say, or "she has a work deadline," or "she had a previous commitment." My family was too polite to press, but I caught the concerned looks my parents exchanged behind my back. Last month, my mother finally addressed it during our weekly phone call. "Son, is everything all right at home?" she asked gently. "We barely see Camille anymore, and when we do, she seems unhappy." I gave her the standard deflection about stress and busy schedules, about Camille's workload and my own, but my mother was not buying it. "We love you both," she said carefully. "But if someone consistently finds fault with people who care about them, that says more about their character than ours." She was right, of course. My family was not perfect, but they were genuine. They celebrated successes, supported each other through difficulties, and maintained connections across generations. They called on birthdays, sent food when you were sick, and showed up when life fell apart. What Camille called controlling, many people would have called caring. I knew that. I just did not want to admit what it meant. The final straw came 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. We were sitting at our kitchen table, bills spread out between us, when she announced that she did not want to attend Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house. "Your family is emotionally exhausting," she said. "I need to protect my mental health." "Fine," I told her, tired of arguing. "I will go alone. I will tell them you're not feeling well." "No," she said quickly. "That will make me look bad. I will come, but do not expect me to pretend everything is wonderful." She looked me straight in the eye when she said it. I should have recognized that as the threat it was. Instead, I clung to hope. I told myself she would get through one dinner without creating drama. I actually believed she might surprise me by acting like an adult for a few hours. Standing in my parents' kitchen that Thanksgiving morning, helping my mother prepare vegetables, I felt a surprising sense of optimism. The house smelled like home, onions sautéing in butter, sweet potatoes baking, cornbread cooling on the counter. Family members arrived with covered dishes and laughter, the volume rising with every new person who walked through the door. My father checked the game on television in the living room. Uncles debated football, and my younger cousins chased each other down the hallway. I thought, maybe this year will be different. I was wrong. Camille's explosion at the dinner table had not been spontaneous. Not really. It had been building for months. She had been collecting grievances, writing her own script about my controlling family, and her brave stand. She wanted this moment. She wanted to break something in a public way, to put me in a position where I would be forced to choose. What she did not expect was my response. She wanted to fight. She wanted me to beg, to choose between her and my family, to prove my devotion by defending her unreasonable behavior. She expected the same script as every other argument we had ever had, the one where she made explosive statements, threatened to leave, and I calmed things down by apologizing for things that were not my fault. But something had shifted in me over those months of watching her treat the people I loved with contempt. You can only enable bad behavior for so long before you become complicit in it. When she screamed about wanting a divorce, she thought she was playing her ace card, the ultimate threat, the thing that would make me panic and cave. Instead, I called her bluff. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes after I hung up the phone with Mr. Franklin. Camille stood there frozen, clearly processing that her grand, dramatic moment had backfired. Meanwhile, 23 pairs of eyes watched this unfold like a slow-motion car accident. My father was the first to break the tension. He cleared his throat softly, picked up the carving knife again, and resumed slicing turkey like we had simply paused for a commercial break. "Maurice, pass your plate down here," he said in a normal tone. "This bird is not going to serve itself." That simple action seemed to wake everyone up. Conversations gradually resumed, though much quieter than before. My mother started refilling water glasses with slightly shaky hands, and Grandma Rose continued her story about the stuffing recipe, her voice a little more measured but steady. Camille finally sat down, but she looked completely lost, as if someone had snatched the script out of her hands. She kept glancing at me, then at my pocket where my phone had gone, then back at me, as though waiting for me to suddenly panic and take it all back. "You cannot be serious," she whispered, leaning toward me so only the closest few could hear. "You just humiliated me in front of your entire family." I took a bite of mashed potatoes before responding. "I did not humiliate you," I said quietly. "You humiliated yourself. I just responded appropriately to your request." "That was not a request," she hissed. "I was upset. You screamed that you hated my family and demanded an immediate divorce in front of grandparents, siblings, and children," I said, cutting my turkey with deliberate care. "Those were your exact words. I am simply honoring them." She looked around the table desperately, but nobody was coming to her rescue. Maurice was deliberately focused on his plate, his jaw tight. Tanisha was helping my Aunt Denise calm the kids, who were still unsettled. My parents were maintaining polite conversation with my cousins, doing their best to hold the gathering together. "You're supposed to fight for our marriage," Camille whispered. "You're just going to let it go like this." I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "Fight for what exactly?" I asked. "You just told everyone here that you hate the people I love most. You have spent months treating my family like they are beneath you. What exactly am I supposed to fight for?" "We can go to counseling," she insisted. "We can work through this." "Work through what?" I asked. "Your contempt for my family? Your disrespect for people who have done nothing but welcome you? Some things cannot be fixed with counseling." My grandmother suddenly spoke up from across the table. "Young lady," Grandma Rose said in that gentle but firm tone she had perfected over 86 years. "In all my decades, I have never seen someone be so deliberately cruel at a family gathering. We have tried nothing but kindness with you." Camille's face flushed red. "I do not need a lecture from someone who does not understand modern relationships," she snapped. The entire table went silent again. "In our family, you did not disrespect Grandma Rose. Not in this house, not anywhere." My father slowly placed his napkin on the table and looked across at Camille. "If you have any sense," he said in a voice I remembered from childhood, the one that meant serious trouble, "you will apologize to my mother. Right now." "I did not owe anyone here an apology," Camille shot back. "You people are impossible to please." That did it. Maurice finally looked up from his plate, his eyes hard in a way I rarely saw. "Impossible to please," he repeated. "We have included you in every holiday, every birthday, every celebration for 5 years. We have listened to your complaints about our traditions, accommodated your dietary preferences, and bent over backward to make you feel welcome. And this is how you repay that kindness." "Maurice," my mother said quietly, placing a hand on his arm, but he was not finished. "No, Mom. Someone needs to say this," he continued. "We have all walked on eggshells around her attitude for months, pretending we do not notice when she rolls her eyes or makes those little comments. We have watched our brother make excuses for behavior that would embarrass a teenager." Camille stood up again, but this time she looked panicked rather than angry. "You are all ganging up on me," she said, her voice rising. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your family is a pack. No one ever takes my side. Nobody is ganging up on you," I said, remaining seated and keeping my tone even. "You created this situation. You made the demands. I am simply following through." "But the lawyer, the divorce papers, you cannot just," she stammered. "I can," I said, reaching for the cranberry sauce as calmly as I could. "And I am. You want out of this family. You have made that crystal clear. I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." My Aunt Denise spoke from the other end of the table. "Honey, maybe you should step outside and cool down," she suggested gently. "Think about what you really want here." For a moment, Camille looked like she might take that advice. She glanced toward the front door, then back at me, clearly hoping I would chase after her, that someone would beg her to stay. Instead, I turned to my nephew Zion. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing a small smile. "You want to help me get some more rolls from the kitchen?" That broke Camille completely. She realized that not only was I not going to follow her, but I was actively moving on with my evening, treating her dramatic exit attempt as irrelevant to the continuation of my life. "Fine," she shouted. "Fine. If this is how you want to handle things, do not come crying to me when you realize what you have lost." She stormed toward the front door, but stopped when she realized she did not have her purse or coat. The awkward pause as she had to come back through the dining room to get her things was almost painful to watch. No one said a word. She grabbed her purse off the back of her chair and snatched her coat from the hallway closet. "I will be staying at my sister Keisha's," she announced to no one in particular. "Do not bother calling." "I will not," I replied without looking up from my plate. After the front door slammed, the house settled into a different kind of quiet. Not the shocked silence from before, but something more peaceful, like everyone had just stepped off a shaking bridge on a solid ground. My mother started clearing empty plates, moving a little slower than usual. My father resumed carving turkey for seconds. Conversations gradually picked up again, soft at first, then more natural. Grandma Rose caught my eye from across the table and gave me the smallest nod of approval. That meant more than I could say. "Anyone want to talk about dessert?" my mother asked after a few minutes, her voice steadier. "I made 3 different pies this year: sweet potato, pecan, and apple." The kids cheered, and the adults smiled weakly. Life, somehow, was continuing. Friday morning came with an unfamiliar sense of peace. I woke up alone for the first time in years without feeling anxious about what mood would greet me at breakfast. No walking on tiptoes, no wondering what innocent comment might trigger an argument. The house was quiet, but did not feel empty. It felt calm. When I checked my phone, there were 17 missed calls and 12 text messages, all from Camille. The text messages started apologetic. "I was overwhelmed yesterday. Can we talk? I did not mean what I said about your family. I was just stressed." Then they shifted to bargaining. "We can fix this. We can set boundaries with them if that is what you want." By 3 o'clock in the morning, they had turned accusatory. "You are really going to throw away 5 years over one bad moment?" Your family finally got what they wanted. I deleted every message without responding. Then I put the phone face down on the kitchen counter, laced on my running shoes, and went out for a morning run, something I had not done in months because Camille always complained about me leaving early on weekends. The cold air burned my lungs in the best possible way. When I returned, breathing hard and sweaty, My neighbor, Mr. Howard, was getting his newspaper from his driveway. Everything all right over there? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Heard some commotion yesterday evening. Thought maybe the game went into overtime or something. I managed a small smile. Just working through some things, I replied. We are fine. There was no need to air our dirty laundry, even though half the neighborhood had probably heard Camille's car peeling out of the driveway when she left for Keisha's place. Saturday morning brought a knock at the door. When I opened it, Keisha stood on the porch, her coat half zipped and her expression conflicted. Camille's sister had always been decent to me, polite and straightforward, and unlike Camille, she never seemed offended by my family's closeness. She sent me to talk to you, Keisha said without any small talk. She is staying at my place and crying constantly. She says you will not answer her calls. There is nothing to discuss, I replied, opening the door wider and gesturing for her to come inside. She made her position clear on Thursday. Keisha stepped into the living room, glancing around at the half-tidy space as if expecting to see signs of chaos. Instead, she saw folded blankets, a clean coffee table, and a television still paused on yesterday's football highlights. We sat on opposite ends of the couch. Come on, Daryl, Keisha said. You know she did not mean it the way it sounded. She was just having a bad day. A bad day. I repeated. Keisha, she has been having bad days for months. Thursday was not an isolated incident. It was the loudest version of things she has been saying quietly for years. She loves you, Keisha insisted. She is just difficult sometimes. I shook my head. Difficult is forgetting to take out the trash or leaving dishes in the sink. What happened Thursday was deliberate cruelty toward people who have shown her nothing but kindness for 5 years. Keisha shifted uncomfortably, twisting her hands together. She wants to know if you will consider counseling, Keisha continued. Maybe if you both talk to a professional, you can figure out what went wrong. We do not need a counselor to identify the problem, I said. The problem is that she cannot show basic respect to my family. She has a talent for creating drama at every gathering and a habit of making everything about herself. That is not a communication issue. That is a character issue. Keisha sighed. She made a mistake, she said softly. No. I corrected, my tone firm but not angry. A mistake is saying something you do not mean in anger. What she did was reveal her authentic feelings in a moment when she believed she had power over the situation. The only thing she regrets is that it backfired. Keisha looked down at her hands for a long moment. She has been complaining about your family to me for years, Keisha finally admitted. I always told her she was lucky to have in-laws who cared so much. Most people would give anything for that kind of support. There was no satisfaction in hearing that, only a tired sense of confirmation. After a few more minutes of quiet, Keisha stood. I will tell her what you said, she murmured. I do not think she will hear it, but I will tell her. Sunday brought my mother's weekly phone call earlier than usual. How are you holding up, son? She asked, skipping any pretense. Better than I expected, I said honestly. To be truthful, I think I've been emotionally preparing for this longer than I realized. There was a pause on the line. We all saw it coming, my mother said softly. We just hoped. Well, we hoped love would be enough to change her perspective. Love requires mutual respect, Mom, I said. She never respected any of you, which meant she never truly respected me either. My mother exhaled slowly. Your father wants you to know that whatever you need, help with lawyers, a place to stay, anything, we are here, she said. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat a mix of grief and gratitude. That afternoon, Mr. Franklin called to confirm our Monday appointment. I have drafted the initial paperwork, he said. Given the public nature of her announcement, and assuming she does not contest, we can probably have this wrapped up in about 60 days. He paused. She may already be trying to backtrack. That is common. People say things they regret in emotional moments. Are you reconsidering? Not for a second, I replied. I am done living in that level of chaos. Monday arrived with another knock at my front door, this time from Camille herself. She looked terrible. Red eyes, unwashed hair pulled into a messy knot, wrinkled sweatpants instead of her usual carefully chosen outfits. For a moment, some old instinct told me to comfort her, but I pushed it aside. Please, she said the moment I opened the door. Can we just talk? We have talked plenty over the years, I replied, stepping out onto the porch and closing the door behind me. I did not invite her in. I listened to you complain about every member of my family. I watched you roll your eyes at traditions that matter deeply to them. I made excuses for your behavior until I became complicit in it. I will change, she said quickly. I will be different. I will apologize to everyone. I will do whatever they need me to do. Just please, do not end our marriage like this. You will apologize because you got caught, I said. Not because you understand why your behavior was wrong. There is a difference. She flinched at that, then tried a different angle. What about our history together? She asked, her voice breaking. Our plans, the house we were looking at, the vacation we booked for Christmas, the years we have spent building this life. You're just going to throw that away. History does not justify tolerating disrespect, I said. Plans change. The house was never a sure thing anyway. And I can cancel the vacation. Her face crumpled. I do not understand how you can just throw everything away, she whispered. I'm not throwing anything away, I replied. You threw it away on Thanksgiving night when you chose to humiliate people I love in their own home during a family celebration. I'm just accepting your decision. But I love you, she said desperately. I paused, considering how honest to be. No, you do not, I answered finally. You love the idea of me. You love having someone to control, someone who will make excuses for your behavior and shield you for consequences. But you do not love me enough to treat my family with basic human decency. Her shoulders sagged as if I had punched the air out of her. The papers were signed by Wednesday. She did not contest anything at first, probably hoping that cooperation might soften me. It did not. Friends started reaching out as word spread. We heard about you and Camille, they said. We are sorry things did not work out. My response was the same each time. Sometimes people show you who they truly are, I would say. The smart thing is to believe them the first time. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, the divorce proceedings moved faster than either of us had expected. Camille had initially agreed to everything, but when she realized I was not wavering, her strategy shifted dramatically. I want half of everything, she announced through her newly hired attorney at our next meeting. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, and spousal support for 3 years. Mr. Franklin did not even blink. Given that your client publicly demanded a divorce in front of multiple witnesses, then voluntarily abandoned the marital home, we have strong grounds to contest these demands, he said calmly. Her lawyer pushed back, talking about emotional distress and irrational behavior. My client was overwhelmed and spoke without thinking, he insisted. Your client spent months displaying contempt for her husband's family before this incident, Mr. Franklin replied. We have witnesses who can testify to a pattern of hostile behavior leading up to her public outburst. That was when things became truly interesting. Camille apparently thought she could salvage her reputation by claiming I had been emotionally distant and that my family had systematically excluded and belittled her. The problem with that narrative was evidence. Text messages between family members showed years of efforts to include her. Screenshots of my mother asking what dishes she preferred, my sister rearranging dates around Camille's schedule, my father offering to help with her car or job search. Photos from events revealed her consistent lack of participation, standing off to the side with her arms folded or absent entirely from group pictures. Most damaging was her own social media, where she had posted complaints about fake family gatherings and suffocating in-laws long before Thanksgiving. Maurice volunteered to provide a written statement. She made it clear from day one that she thought she was better than us, he wrote. We kept hoping she would warm up, but instead she became more distant and more critical. Even Keisha ended up contradicting Camille's story when pressed during a deposition. She complained about his family constantly, Keisha admitted. She said they asked too many questions and had too many opinions. I told her multiple times she was lucky to have in-laws who cared. The turning point came when her attorney discovered the 17 text messages she had sent me after Thanksgiving. Reading them in sequence painted a clear picture. First apologetic, then manipulative, and finally angry when her usual tactics failed. Your client's own words undermine her claims of emotional distress, Mr. Franklin pointed out during one meeting. She went from demanding a divorce to trying to negotiate terms to threatening consequences when she did not get her way. That is calculated behavior, not an emotional breakdown. By early December, Camille's demands had shrunk considerably. No spousal support, a limited claim on retirement accounts, A rushed timeline to vacate the house she had never contributed to financially anyway. But she was not finished trying to manipulate the situation. The week before Christmas, she showed up at my parents' house during our family's cookie baking tradition. My mother answered the door to find Camille on the porch with tears streaming down her face. Inside, the kitchen was full of flour-dusted counters, cooling racks lined with sugar cookies, and my younger cousins arguing about whose turn it was to decorate. My mother stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. "Camille," she said, surprised but calm. "What are you doing here?" "I know I messed up," Camille said, voice trembling. "But I love Daryl and I love this family. Can we please find a way to fix this?" My mother studied her for a moment, then opened the door and gestured toward the living room. "Come in for a minute," she said. "We can talk." Not because she believed the performance, she later told me, but because she wanted to give Camille one final chance to show authentic remorse. They sat in the living room while the rest of the family stayed in the kitchen, the sounds of laughter and Christmas music drifting faintly through the doorway. "I've been thinking about that night," my mother began carefully, "and I cannot understand how someone who claims to love us could say such hurtful things in front of the children and grandparents. I was overwhelmed." Camille repeated her familiar excuse. "I felt like I did not fit in, like you all had inside jokes and traditions that excluded me." I just snapped. "Honey, those traditions included you for 5 years," my mother said gently. "We explained every story, taught you every recipe, and invited you into every conversation. You chose to see exclusion where there was only love." Camille tried another approach. "Maybe I could talk to Daryl," she suggested. "Explain how I'm feeling now. If he hears it from me, maybe he will reconsider. I know I crossed a line." "He is not here," my mother replied truthfully. "He is at work. But even if he were, I'm not sure what you could say that would change anything. You revealed your genuine feelings that night. We believe you." When Camille finally left, my mother watched her walk down the driveway, her shoulders hunched against the cold. Then she went back into the kitchen, wiped her hands on a towel, and joined the cookie assembly line as if nothing had happened. That evening, she called me. She came by, my mother said. She tried tears and apologies. I listened, but she seems more desperate than sorry. There is a difference between regret and remorse. She regrets the consequences, but I do not think she understands why her behavior was wrong. 3 days later, Camille attempted one final group manipulation. She sent a handwritten letter to every family member, apologizing for her moment of weakness on Thanksgiving and asking for their help in healing our marriage. She wrote about how alone she felt, how overwhelmed she had been, how deeply she loved me. She suggested that if they could all encourage me to attend counseling, we might be able to rebuild. My grandmother's response was swift and final. She called Camille directly. "Young lady," Grandma Rose said, her voice steady, "I have lived long enough to recognize genuine remorse versus damage control. If you truly understood the hurt you caused, you would not be asking us to convince our son to take you back. You would be working on becoming the kind of person worthy of his love." "But I am working on myself," Camille protested. "I've been reading books, journaling, trying to understand my triggers." "No," Grandma Rose replied firmly. "You are working on getting him back. Those are entirely different things." That was the last real contact my family had with Camille. The divorce was finalized January 15th. Camille's final act was trying to contest the division of wedding gifts, claiming that her family's contributions should stay with her. Mr. Franklin shut that down quickly. "Your client received everything from her family," he explained to the judge. "She has no claim on gifts given specifically to both parties by his family, especially given the circumstances of the divorce." The judge agreed. The day I signed the final papers, I felt something I had not experienced in years. Complete peace. No anxiety about walking into my own house. No wondering what mood would be waiting behind the door. No careful word choices to avoid triggering an argument. That evening, my mother called with the family's traditional invitation to Sunday dinner. But this time, her tone was lighter. "We are making your grandmother's pot roast recipe," she said. "We would love to have you join us. No drama, no tension, just family." For the first time in months, I accepted without hesitation. Sunday dinner that week was quiet in the best possible way. We ate, we talked, we watched a game. Nobody tiptoed. Nobody whispered warnings in the kitchen. When I left, I realized I had not once checked my phone, waiting for an angry text or complaint. 6 months after that Thanksgiving dinner, I ran into Camille at the grocery store. I was in the produce section, comparing bags of salad mix, when I heard someone say my name. I turned to see her standing there with a small cart, alone, looking tired and significantly thinner than I remembered. For a brief second, an old reflex made me want to ask if she was eating enough, but I let the impulse pass. "Hi," she said quietly, blocking my path with her cart. "How have you been?" "Good," I replied honestly. "Better than I have been in years, actually." She flinched at that answer, her lips tightening. "I've been thinking about what happened," she said. "About us. I know I made mistakes. You made choices," I corrected. "There's a difference." "I have been going to therapy," she said quickly, as if that might change everything. "Working on my anger issues and communication problems. My therapist says I have some unresolved childhood stuff that made me defensive." "That is good for you," I said. "Personal growth is always worthwhile." She studied my face, probably searching for some sign that I still cared about her progress. When she found none, her expression hardened slightly. "You know, your family is not perfect either," she said. "They can be judgmental and overwhelming." And there it was. 6 months of therapy, and she still cannot take full responsibility without deflecting some of the blame. "You are absolutely right," I agreed calmly. "They're not perfect. They are human beings with flaws and opinions and strong feelings about the people they love. But they are good people who treat others with kindness and respect." "I treated them with respect," Camille protested. I almost laughed. "You told my 86-year-old grandmother that she had outdated opinions and did not understand modern relationships," I reminded her. "You refused to participate in family photos. You spent 5 years complaining about people who did nothing but try to include you." "I was struggling to fit in," she said, her voice rising. "No," I replied. "You were struggling to accept that the world does not revolve around you." Her face flushed with that familiar anger I had seen so many times. "You are never going to forgive me, are you?" she asked. "Forgiveness is not the issue," I said. "Understanding is. You still do not understand what you did wrong, which means you would inevitably do it again. I'm not going to sign up for another round of that." I pushed my cart past her, but she called after me. "You will regret this," she shouted softly, aware of the other shoppers nearby. "You will realize what you gave up." I turned back one final time. "I gave up walking on eggshells in my own life," I said. "I gave up making excuses for inexcusable behavior. I gave up sacrificing my family's peace for your ego. Trust me, I do not regret any of it." That encounter confirmed what I had suspected all along. She had not changed because she still could not see past her own perspective long enough to recognize the damage she had caused. Last month, my family celebrated my nephew Zion's first birthday. The house was full of the usual chaos, kids running around with frosting on their faces, multiple overlapping conversations, my grandmother at the dining table teaching a teenage cousin a new card game, my mother coordinating food like a military operation from the kitchen. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling, and a cartoon show played quietly in the background for the toddlers. As I watched Tanisha help Zion blow out his single candle while everyone cheered, I felt a wave of gratitude, so strong it almost made me dizzy. Not just for my family, but for my decision to protect what mattered most. Maurice sat down beside me on the couch, handing me a paper plate with a generous slice of cake. "Remember when you used to stress about bringing Camille to these things?" he asked. "Every single time," I admitted. "I would wonder what she would find to criticize, how long before she would want to leave, whether she would say something that would hurt someone's feelings. I spent more time managing her reactions than actually enjoying my family." Maurice nodded, taking a bite of cake. "You seem lighter now," he said. "Different. It is good to see." My phone buzzed with a text message from a college friend I had recently reconnected with. "Still coming to dinner Friday." The message read, "Jasmine is making that pasta dish you liked." Jasmine was a teacher who had been divorced for 3 years. We started as friends, talking about work and family and the strange feeling of starting over in your 30s. But something genuine was developing between us, slowly and naturally. The difference was night and day. She loved hearing stories about my family, asked thoughtful questions about Zion's milestones, and had already volunteered to help with Grandma Rose's 90th birthday party next month. On a video call with Jasmine a few days earlier, My mother had laughed at one of her jokes and later told me, "She seems kind." That simple comment had meant more than any dramatic declaration. "Would not miss it," I texted back. After the birthday party, my parents and I stayed behind to help clean up. We packed away decorations, wrapped leftover cake in foil, and stacked folding chairs against the wall. My father rinsed dishes at the sink, while my mother loaded the dishwasher with the steady rhythm of someone who had hosted thousands of family gatherings. "Have you heard anything about Camille lately?" my father asked casually over the running water. "I ran into her at the grocery store a few months ago," I said. "She is still playing the victim, still blaming everyone else for her problems." My mother shook her head, scraping frosting off a serving knife. "Some people never learn," she said. "We tried so hard with her." "You tried perfectly," I assured them. "You welcomed her, included her, and treated her like family for 5 years. Her inability to appreciate that says everything about her character and nothing about yours." My grandmother, who was folding napkins at the table with the precision of a person who took pride in every small task, looked up with a knowing smile. "You know what the beautiful thing is about all this?" Grandma Rose asked. "What is that, Grandma?" I replied, "You chose us," she said simply. "When it came down to it, you chose family over dysfunction, love over drama, peace over chaos. That takes courage." It did not feel courageous at the time, I admitted. It felt necessary. Grandma Rose nodded. "The best decisions usually do," she said. "They feel like survival at first. The gratitude comes later." Her words settled into me like a weight and a comfort at the same time. Driving home that evening, I reflected on how much had changed since the previous Thanksgiving. The anxiety was gone. The constant tension had disappeared. Sunday dinners had become something I looked forward to rather than something I endured. My car no longer felt like a space for post-visit debriefs and complaints. It was just my car again, carrying me between places that felt like home. As I pulled into my driveway, my phone rang. It was my new attorney, calling about finalizing the sale of the house Camille and I had once considered buying together. We had put in an offer before everything fell apart, and I had decided to move forward alone when the sellers countered. "The buyers accepted your counteroffer," he said. "Congratulations. You will have the closing funds in your account by Friday." I thanked him and hung up, then sat in the car for a moment, taking inventory of my life. I had a job I genuinely enjoyed, a family that supported me without conditions, and new relationships built on mutual respect. Most importantly, I had complete freedom from the exhausting cycle of drama and manipulation that had defined my marriage. As I walked toward my front door, keys in hand, I thought about something Grandma Rose had told me years earlier when I was still in college. "The people who truly love you will never make you choose between them and your happiness," she had said. Camille had spent 5 years making me choose. My family never had. I unlocked my door and stepped into a home that felt peaceful again, a place where I could breathe, where silence did not mean danger, where love did not come with conditions or ultimatums. Some decisions change everything. That Thanksgiving dinner had been one of them, and I had never been more grateful for a moment of absolute clarity. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.